I used to be the butt of every skinny joke that you can think of. Literally, there's not a single insult that you could tell me that I probably haven't heard before. The one that I can remember the most was when one of my high school classmates compared me to the skeleton in my 10th grade biology classroom. So when I was 17 years old, I graduated high school at about 5 feet 9 inches tall and 110 pounds. So I was very, very skinny. Now, whether it was from friends or from family, I got so much flack about my lack of appetite that I had terrible anxiety whenever I had to eat in front of other people. I was extraordinarily self-conscious about my body. I didn't like to wear shorts in public. And whenever I was invited to, say, a pool party or something, I wouldn't even get in the water because I didn't want to take my shirt off and people to see me for who I was. So it's safe to say that my self-image was truly in the basement during my childhood. Growing up, I was a product of my environment. Coming from New Orleans, where food and drinking and partying is deeply entrenched into the culture, I really had no concept of healthy eating or healthy living during this time in my life. I'd even go as far as to say that in my experiences, there was a condescending or slightly passively aggressive attitude towards anybody who wanted to live a healthier and health conscious lifestyle. I should also point out that with almost 40% of the population living with obesity, Louisiana is among the fattest states in the US. This is in addition to me living square in the middle of Cancer Alley, which is a region in Louisiana with over 200 petrochemical plants that pollute the air and drive cancer rates up about 50% higher than the national average. And on top of that, Louisiana has ranked #1 in the World Population Review's list of unhealthiest states, with one of the highest rates of mental illness and percentage of the population that reports engaging in no physical activity or no exercise, along with one of the lowest life expectancies in the country. So this should give some light as to how little of a priority health and fitness was during my younger years. In fact, throughout my 20s, I ran a nightclub promotion company, so I was out late at night almost every weekend. I was drinking a lot, I ate a lot of restaurant food every day, and I practiced no form of mindfulness or meditation, and I certainly didn't exercise. I was always naturally skinny during this time, but I did notice that as I approached my late 20s, I started to develop a sort of skinny fat appearance. I also began to consistently experience anxiety, depression, low energy, and a variety of mysterious illnesses. And I think that only because I was in my 20s and still relatively young that I didn't completely fall off the deep end. But I was heading in that direction and well on my way to becoming one of the statistics that I just talked about. And this brings me to the first phase of my fitness journey, which is changing life circumstances. So I knew that I was soon going to be moving away from New Orleans and taking a major step in leveling up my education and my career, as well as my overall network. I decided that if there would be any opportune time for me to level up my physique, then now would be the time. I didn't really know anything about working out at this time. I had lifted weights a few times back in high school, but I never really educated myself on the ins and outs. I started going to the gym after work 3 days a week, and I ran a couple of miles in the park twice a week with a couple of rest days scattered in between. Now, I really had no idea what I was doing in the gym. I just did things that intuitively made sense to me. But my workouts did include a lot of trial and error. Gym intimidation was real at first, but I quickly realized that nobody really cares that much about you in the gym. So I simply brushed off my insecurities and just kept at it. But no matter what, I did get this sense of satisfaction that I was doing something that was really good for myself. I didn't quite understand the science behind the mood boosting benefits of exercise, but I felt good knowing that both physically and psychologically, I was practicing a form of maintenance and self-care that I really had never done for myself up until this time. So by August of 2016, just after I had moved away and started my master's degree, I had really gotten into a groove, but then I injured my shoulder while using poor form during a workout. This really killed my momentum, and I went back to being sedentary during my first semester of school. But that wouldn't last for too much longer. The second phase of my fitness journey was recommitting. The first semester of my master's program was really stressful. I drank more alcohol than I should have. I slept much less than I should have. And I stressed out way more than was necessary. The stress of classes, networking, traveling, and high pressure job interviews took a toll on my health, mentally and physically. So after that first semester ended, I doubled down and recommitted to my fitness journey and to working out. However, this time, instead of approaching it with a new life, new me mindset, my fitness motivation came from a place of desperation and a desire to be in a better place mentally, in addition to wanting to improve my overall aesthetic and confidence. Business school can be a competitive environment, and I wasn't the only one stressing. I noticed that many people around me were also stressing over one thing or another, and it was usually related to getting a job or something to do with the corporate world or someone's career trajectory. I noticed how a lot of people put their health and wellness on the back burner in pursuit of a really high salary or a prestigious job title. And then I noticed that what I was observing was really a microcosm of our broader Western society, which values external success markers over peace of mind and well-being, particularly here in America. So this was the pivotal moment where I decided that there was no job, no profession, no status, or no title that was worth me sacrificing my personal well-being. I decided that my health comes first and foremost, because if I lose that, I have nothing else. And this takes me to the third phase of my fitness transformation, which is the gym bro phase. By the time I graduated with my master's and in the years following, I was well into my fitness journey. I was now in my early 30s, and it was a lifestyle at this point. I spent most of this time trying to pack on more muscle and optimize my fitness. I was experimenting with different workout splits, different rep ranges, different forms of lifting, hitting and then breaking through plateaus, and progressively lifting heavier and heavier weights. I say that I was a gym bro during this time because my fitness subscribed to much of the bro science that was out there. So things like calories in and calories out, 1 pound of protein per pound of body mass, and lifting to muscle fatigue guided my diet and training. I decided on protein shakes primarily on their flavor. I ate a lot of grain-based carbs to get the calories that I needed to meet my weight goals. And I worked out 4 or 5 days a week with active rest days in between, along with occasional deload weeks to prevent overtraining, I suppose. And throughout all of this, I very slowly but surely gained muscle mass. I had to start wearing bigger clothes. I finally moved up to medium-sized shirts, and I eventually reached 165 pounds at about 15% body fat. Lifting weights had become so integral into my daily life that I actively looked forward to my workouts, because it was time to have to myself, to meditate, and to momentarily step away from all of the chaos of the world and focus specifically on developing myself. But after a while, this time in my life, it did become a bit stale. Life in general had become too routine. And I remember telling some of my friends that I felt like I was going through a bit of a crisis because life had honestly become too comfortable. I had become a corporate drone with no major challenges or ambitions in front of me. And by this time, I used my workouts as my only escape from a reality that I wasn't too satisfied with. I really depended on that hour or so of working out on most days to be my medicine. Although I began once again to suffer from anxiety, depression, and a general lack of well-being. Phase 4 of my fitness journey is calisthenics. With the onset of the pandemic, like everyone else, I wasn't able to hit the gym anymore for my daily therapy. So this became a problem. I live in the middle of Chicago, and I didn't know anyone at the time with their own gym at home. So I needed to come up with an alternative. That's when I started investigating, how do prisoners work out when they don't have access to weights? And that eventually led me to discover calisthenics. This is also the time that I started to share my fitness journey online by posting videos on Instagram. Calisthenics really changed the calculus for me because the focus is more on skill building. And because it's based on body weight exercises, you naturally want to be leaner to make it easier to perform the different skills. So I committed a cardinal sin for people who struggle with gaining weight and putting on mass. I stopped my 5-year continuous bulk and decided to start eating intuitively and let my body set at a more natural weight. Now, by eating intuitively, I don't mean eating whatever I wanted. I still maintained a pretty healthy diet, but I didn't force feed myself with weight gainer and a bunch of carbs. So naturally, I wasn't consuming an excessive amount of calories, and I was able to remain satiated. Now, this is when I started to lean out. I began losing weight, but I wasn't losing muscle because the nature of calisthenics requires you to use your muscles a lot. This means I became lighter with a lower body fat percentage, but I also gained a lot of relative strength, which made me become progressively more capable of performing increasingly advanced body weight exercises. However, this period was quite difficult for me because as I was off to the races with my calisthenics, I also lost my job during this time and was unemployed for 10 months. I also ended a long-term relationship and re-entered the dating scene, which was very different than what I was accustomed to in my 20s. So the beginning of the calisthenics portion of my fitness journey came at a very difficult time in life. My depression was off the charts, my anxiety was crippling, and the back-to-back blows of losing a job during the pandemic, being chronically unemployed, losing a relationship, and struggling to find myself left me searching for a pathway to not only being physically fit, but also mentally and spiritually strong and resilient. This period of struggle was a pivotal moment in my life. It was a game changer that inspired the final phase of my journey and my transformation, which is phase 5, the holistic health phase. Now, this is where my fitness breakthrough really happened, and I unlocked another previously unexplored dimension of what it means to be mentally and physically strong and how to get there. I consider myself a polymath with a heavy interest in reading. So my desire to explore the inner workings of my own brain and body led me to dive really deeply into books on evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology, as well as the incredible stories of different people who found ways to lift themselves up out of despair, to truly find their callings in life and become wildly successful. I read a lot of books during this time, but a few life changers that stood out include Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, Limitless by Jim Quick, The Story of the Human Body by Daniel Lieberman, and Metabolical by Robert Lustig. The information that I gathered from these books and many others all boil down to 4 main insights. The first is that understanding our evolutionary origins helps us to cut through all of the BS that's out there and find real solutions to our health and fitness by aligning our minds and bodies with nature. The second is that pain, suffering, and struggle are necessary components of the human experience. And the more we try to shelter ourselves from these things, the more incomplete we feel. The third insight is that the messaging that we've received about health and wellness have been grossly distorted by both politics and profit motives, and has collectively led our society in the direction of accelerating rates of chronic health problems, more reliance on pills and surgery, and deteriorating mental health. The fourth and final insight was that modern conventions around health and wellness are way more complicated than they need to be. Taking a few steps backwards and simplifying our lifestyles is the key to making us leaner, smarter, stronger, healthier, and more satisfied. So these insights dramatically influence my approach to health. I begin to reject the status quo in terms of what we should be eating, how we should treat our bodies, and overall how we should live our lives. I realized during this time that our views on health are quite limited and one-dimensional. And instead, I began incorporating holistic health practices that consider health determinants from all angles of life, including environmental factors, behavioral factors, lifestyle factors, and social factors. The result was a new fitness and wellness regimen that included the following: 2 meals a day, barefoot grounding, getting plenty of sleep, regular cold exposure, learning a new language, hydrating with mineral water, nurturing healthy relationships, 16 hours of fasting at least 5 days a week, a minimum of 30 minutes of walking every day, adding plants and greenery to my interior space, getting plenty of sunlight, especially in the morning, a diet of either whole foods or minimally processed foods, moderate intensity and high frequency body weight resistance training, more meat, eggs, dairy, fruit, butter, animal fat, olive oil, and salt, less sugar, carbs, grains, starchy vegetables, and vegetable oils. Now, I can make a video on the specific benefits of each of these practices, but the cumulative effects of each compounded has had a transformational impact on my life. The results: a leaner physique between 145 and 150 pounds, and about 9 to 10% body fat year round. Significantly more physical strength, stamina, and motor skills. No more depression, anxiety, or self-limiting beliefs. Greater mental clarity, cognitive functioning, and creativity. Boosted immune system with less frequent and less severe illnesses. And an abundance mindset that has given me an optimistic view even in the hardest of times. So by this point, my transformation has become more than just physical. I think that when most of us start our fitness journeys, we start off wanting to improve our appearance first and foremost. Then for some of us, it sort of becomes medicinal and it makes us feel better about ourselves. It uplifts our mood. For me, I'd say that it has gone a step further and has reconnected me with my primitive roots. Those aspects of human nature which are deeply embedded in me at the genetic level. So with this new direction of diving deeply into the evolutionary origins of humans and applying it to my life in a practical manner, I've crafted a new holistic approach to fitness that tailors my diet, my training, and my lifestyle around the core elements of human existence. I feel that it's necessary to share my journey with you because out of the 8 billion people that are on this planet, I'm sure there's at least one person out there who could benefit from hearing me tell it. So if my fitness transformation story resonates with you, or if you're on your own fitness journey, then you may want to consider subscribing to my free weekly newsletter using the link in the description below. Also, I just released my first program, which synthesizes the results of my 8-year transformation, designed to help you get leaner, stronger, and healthier by connecting back to your primitive roots. All right, guys, that's it for today. Have a good one. And always remember to get up, get out, and get after it. Peace.